Hello there. Welcome to the Maker Manager Money podcast, a podcast about entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, founders, business owners, and business partnerships. From startups to stay-ups, to inspire entrepreneurs to keep going and future entrepreneurs to just start. My name is Kyle Knowles, and I'm incredibly lucky to be hosting this podcast. I'm able to learn so much by interviewing creative, entrepreneur, business owner types. I'm what they call a wantrepreneur, but someday I will definitely earn the title of entrepreneur. Today's guest is Sarah Noel Block, who is the founder of Tiny Marketing and host of the Tiny Marketing Podcast, a top 10% podcast. Sarah helps B2Bs or business to businesses with 0 to 2 person marketing departments, clone their favorite customers, and shorten sales cycles with strategies, quarterly marketing plans, and execution intensives. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so it was 21 degrees, or was it negative 21 in Chicago last week?
Negative 21.
Negative
21 degrees is like summer.
You're probably outside in shorts if it's 21 degrees. So that's super cold.
That's what it is today. It feels like a heat wave.
Because it's 21 degrees, or what is it today?
Yeah, it's 21 degrees right now.
Okay.
We swung in the other direction.
So Sarah lives in Chicago, just so everyone knows. And I listened to your latest podcast, and you were saying on Martin Luther King Day, it was negative 21 degrees, and you were all bundled up in your house.
It was. We were all home for like 5 days because it was so cold. Everything was shut down.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it's anyone that's been to Chicago or Wisconsin or anywhere near the Great Lakes, 21 degrees below a negative 21, that's just super cold because it's way colder if you're next to a body of water like that. It just cuts right through you.
Pretty much. That was not even with the wind chill. We don't even want to think about that part.
Nice. So, Sarah, you graduated from DePaul University in 2007 with a Bachelor of Arts in Public Communication. Was there anything before college or even during college that would indicate that you'd become an entrepreneur?
That is such a good question that no one's asked me before. So I was always bossy as all get out. You could ask any of my childhood friends, and I was the one that was coming up with these crazy ideas and then forcing everyone to do it and making it happen. Like I came up with this idea it was like summer fun weekend, and we did it every year in my childhood, where we would do these plays all weekend and invite the neighbors. And then I'd have a series of events we would do. So I guess that was the start of it.
That was the start of live events, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And were you an actress, or you said you did these plays. I assume you were acting in them as well?
I guess I was more of a writer. I was in the plays, but I've always been a writer. I wrote those plays. I wrote stories, used to send them to publishers. I write still. So it was more about the writing and bossing people around that I loved, I guess.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So you go to DePaul and you major in public communications. Is that because you wanted to continue to write?
It was because I hated calculus, and I was originally a marketing major, and I walked out of my calculus class. I was like, what can I do to still be in marketing but not have to take that class? So I switched. As
a English major, I can totally relate, because anyone that has Bachelor of Arts, I always think, okay, they weren't that into numbers. They were probably more into words.
You hate math. I get it.
All right. So what's the thing you use the most today that you learned during college?
I would say the art of persuasion. That going to school for public communication, and my minor was actually in writing, persuasion was a big part of all of that. and helping guide people through a process to understanding your way of thinking. And that is a big part of marketing, is being able to take people on a journey with you and persuade them that this is the right direction for you to go to solve your problems.
Was there a specific class or a teacher or a book or anything that kind of helped you develop the skill of the art of persuasion?
I don't know if it was any certain class, but in more recent years, post college life, a book that's really like Story Brand by Donald Miller is so good at guiding people through what it's like to think from a customer's perspective and guide them on a journey. So that book is one I'd recommend if that's something that you want to learn.
That's great. Thanks for the recommendation. So let's talk about from college onward. So 2007, you get your degree. Tell us about what you did and take us all the way through up to the pivotal point where you decided to take the leap of faith and become an entrepreneur.
Well, I got a job right away in marketing. And then 3 years later, we were in the depths of the recession, the Great Recession, and I was laid off. And at that point, I decided I'm never going to have one stream of income again. And I started building my freelancing on the side while working corporate still. So that was like the moment that I started thinking about tiny marketing and what that could look like. Throughout the years, because I don't know, probably in our pre-call, I talked about how it took me a decade to work up the nerve to actually start tiny marketing full time. But throughout the years, I was reiterating what my career could look like, what my business could look like. And then I ended up being a head of marketing for a 7-company group where I was the only marketing person and answering to 7 presidents. So
Wow.
that kind of forced me to pivot because I always worked on big teams. And before that, I had to figure out how to make everything work for 7 different companies with just me. And that's when I built out the framework that I run all of my clients through to be able to create a streamlined marketing strategy, systems to make them work, and then any automations or AI we can add in. And last, what can we outsource? What can we delegate to a contractor if you're a 1-person marketing department? So that's when I built it out. And then when COVID happened, my kids were in virtual school. My company that I was the head of marketing for, again, but a different company, wanted us all to come back in the office. I was like, well, that's not going to work for me. I have 2 kids in virtual school and I had enough contracts to make up my salary. So it was an easy decision to say, okay, I guess this is my leap moment where I want to take tiny marketing full time.
And then how were you? I guess you're working a full time job, you have a family, but you still were getting. I guess you were doing your side hustle and you were getting clients. How did you get those clients since you already had a full time job? How did you balance that, and how did you basically land clients while you were working full time?
Landing them wasn't hard. It was finding all of the time to work on their stuff that was hard with 2 kids. So landing them, a lot of my clients came through, well, people that I've met along the way. They worked at one of the companies that I was a marketer at, so I was their go-to person for marketing. So they came to me for it when they needed it. Or like somebody left a company I worked for and they needed a marketing person, so they pulled me in. Or they found me on LinkedIn because I love LinkedIn. I'm there all the time. It's like my watering hole, right? Chitty chat with people. So a lot of people find me there. And so getting clients was not an issue. That was easy peasy. It was finding the time to do the client work that was hard. So I immediately hired a VA to take care of all of the stuff like during the day that I couldn't do, like checking my emails, keeping up with projects and responding to inquiries. While at night, when my kids were in sim class, I would have my laptop while I'm sitting on the edge of the pool and I'm doing the work for the clients. Or if my kids had a birthday party, my husband would take them and I would finish up my client work. So that's how I made it work until I could take it full time.
Was that through Upwork, or how did you find your virtual assistant?
Yeah, it was Upwork. She was amazing. I loved her.
I know as a service business, and especially if you're a solopreneur, having a virtual assistant is a huge help. And for the things that you don't have time to do, or the things maybe you're not an expert in, whether it's website development and things like that. So I assume that you continue to use some outsourced vendors and virtual assistants now?
I do. I'm in between VAs, which is why my inbox is at, let's see here, 63. So I'm in between VAs. I need one. But I do bring people in for like specific things that don't need my specific brain power, like video editing, podcast editing, content management, where they're scheduling it all out. Those are things that you don't need me for. I work on like the strategy, the copywriting, and things like that.
All right. So you take the leap of faith and you become an entrepreneur. What were the steps that you took to say, finally, once and for all, do this full time?
The first thing I did was go on a blitz to make sure that I had enough contracts to cover my salary. So I had already been thinking about it about 6 months before I left, which was already during the pandemic when we were shut down. But I knew that I was likely going to start on my own. So I went on a blitz, secured the contracts to cover my salary, and I negotiated with my company that I was working for to add them as a client to my business. And once I secured all of that, it was a no-brainer. I put the date on my calendar of what my leap goal was. What's the date that I want to launch my business? And I just made sure to hit these milestones before then. And if I didn't, then my punishment was not taking that leap. So I did, and I did 3 months early. So that's good.
And what is the best thing about working for yourself?
That I have control over everything. I love that I have control over my time. I have control over my income, that there's nobody who can tell me, well, this is your cap, or this is all we can pay you, or you need to be sitting at your desk during these hours. No, I can't. I decide what my offers are. I decide when I work. I decide who I work with. And I love that.
So the freedom. There's
The
a lot of freedom. Yeah. Is there anything you miss about corporate life?
Yeah, my coworkers. I miss them a lot. I always had like good groups of friends at work, and I miss that.
So as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, what are the services that you offer to your customers and clients?
So pretty much everything that's in my framework. I offer streamlined strategies as the first step. I call it the strategic spark. And then building out your foundation. So any systems, templates, workflows, automations that you need, AI that you should be integrating, building all of that out so you can run it in-house if you want to, or it's good to go if you want me to execute it. And that's the last step, is if you need to outsource it, then I can execute for you.
And I love how that you zeroed in on your ideal customer, 0 to 2 marketing personnel at a company.
Yeah, that is right. I love working with them, and I know exactly what their challenge is and what they're going through because I was them. So I love working with them and seeing the transformation that a great system and a streamlined strategy, so you're not trying to do all the things, has on them.
And did you have your ideal customer in mind when you started doing being an entrepreneur full time, or did you kind of come to that after you went out there and you went, oh, you called on someone that had a 10-person marketing department and said, nah, I don't want to get involved with this company. How did you come up with your ideal customer?
I had it in mind already, and for a reason. I was testing content on LinkedIn, and I had different buckets that I was like, what's my angle going to be for my business? So I would test out those different angles, and what resonated the most was those burnt out small marketing departments. So I went with them. Now, when I first launched, of course, I was open to working with other bigger ones too. And I did, because a lot of agencies would hire me as a subcontractor for content marketing strategies. And so I was working with huge companies that had marketing departments in multiple countries. And they didn't need what I'm best at. So it was real quick after working with a few of them that I was like, they aren't my ideal people. They aren't struggling with the same things that my people are. They need somebody else. They need somebody who is like, who understands the struggles of having multiple marketing departments, people butting heads on their ideas, people that are working intercontinentally. Those aren't problems I'm used to. They weren't best for me.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So as far as being an entrepreneur and going out there and trying to keep your pipeline full, I know that you talk a lot about on your podcast events. So can you outline to the audience what your recommendations are for these small businesses that are trying to attract customers, and how they could best do virtual or live events, and kind of walk through your strategy of doing that in the best way?
Yeah. So I'll walk you through beginning to end. So you need to fill those events, right? The first thing that I do is I create a meetup group Meetup fills it for you. All you have to do is be very specific about who it's for and who you're targeting. And then Meetup promotes it to all of the right people. So I start a Meetup group first to start building people in. And then I already have my community on LinkedIn of ideal people and my email list. So I start there, building up the communities that might want to go to one of my virtual events. Next is picking what topic makes sense. Steer away from the how content, because how is going to, unless you want this, how is going to attract DIYers. So if you are teaching a program, if you're a course creator, if you're a coach, that how content is fine. But if you're a service provider, no, because you're just going to get people who want to pick your brain. So stick with why content, or your framework would be good, walking people through that, or your process. Those work well for virtual events. And then you have the event. You want to make sure it's engaging. You're showing exactly who you are, because when they buy your offer, they're buying working with you, and they need to know who you are, like who you are, trust you. So make sure that you're authentic. You're not putting on this facade. And then afterwards, you need to nurture them, because a service company cannot sell live well. Like those countdown timers that you see on webinars, they don't work for service businesses. Or even like an immediate discount, not really, because they still need to trust you. So make sure to move them to some sort of nurturing experience where you might have a community where they hang out, like a Facebook group. I always recommend try and get on connection calls, one-on-one calls with the people who went to your event to get them to come live. Offer bonuses for live attendees only, and this will help build that trust and that relationship if they can actually interact with you live. And then, of course, put them on your email list, so you're nurturing them that way and they're not forgetting about you. But the thing that works best is really your number one goal needs to be to try and get on these one-to-one connection calls, even if it's just 15 minutes. to build that relationship. Tell them a little bit about your service. You're not trying to sell them. You're just trying to build a relationship with them. So when they are ready to purchase whatever the thing is that you're selling, that they think about you. That's ultimately the goal. But virtual events give you this opportunity to do, you're selling one to many, pulling in lots of people at the same time, and then working through them on those one-on-one calls. But you get to do it a little bit more at scale. Hope that helps.
That really helps. Yeah. I know there's a lot of people trying to get into events, but don't have kind of that framework to go by. So I have a couple questions from the framework you just kind of outlined for events. First of all, what are some examples of bonuses that you give to people who join?
So some bonuses I give would be a bundle. I've given away bundles with like the templates that I use for whatever the thing is that I'm teaching. I will give them access to a community that they wouldn't have had access to either way, a workbook. The thing that I have found works amazingly is if you have some sort of gateway or entry offer that is used as like a trust building offer with people, just some lower cost, high value service you can provide, give away 3 of them to live attendees. Comb through your list, see who would be the best fit for you. And they could get that as a giveaway with the intention of upselling them to your full package.
So the event is over and you're looking through your list, and that's when you send out the bonuses? Is that how it works?
No, the bonuses themselves, I'll send right away to them. I'll put it in like the live chat or as a little button they can pop up. But the giveaways for your entry product or your entry service, that I do afterwards because I want to go through the list and see like who would this support best, who's a good fit for it.
Yeah, so strategically deciding through your list who would potentially become a client, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Meetup, is that, I assume that's a website, that's something.
It is.
Okay.
Yes. It is like a community building event website. So you create a meetup, and that's basically a group. People go on there and then they attend your events. I'm in a ton of meetups, like book clubs, writing clubs, and then I have my own for entrepreneurs that want to learn marketing.
And do you use Meetup to run the event?
No. I have a platform. I use it to advertise it. I use a platform called Butter that I'm absolutely obsessed with. It is a virtual workshop platform.
And it has sort of like Zoom capabilities and those kinds of things built into it?
Yeah, it's specifically for facilitators of workshops. So you can upload games in there, quizzes, polls, breakout rooms. There's a ton of stuff that's involved that's specific for interactive workshops, like with the intention of building out more engagement and relationships within the platform.
Okay. And then how did you land with Butter? Were you trying some other platforms and you just found that Butter was
I've tried a million. I'm a chronic beta tester. So yeah, I've tried a lot. I was Googling around because I love hosting workshops, and I wanted to find something that was really fun to be in and felt like an experience that could still be online. So it was scalable, but I just didn't want that boring, same old thing that everyone else is doing. And this is completely customizable and felt really me, where it's like, this is a party in workshop form. So that's how I ended up landing with them.
Okay. And then have you found a certain duration of time to be the best for these sort of introductory
I have found
workshops?
what doesn't work. 90 minutes was too much. I had a workshop that was 90 minutes and there was drop off after the hour. So I would say for a workshop, 60 minutes is probably the max you're going to get out of them. And for a webinar, 30 minutes is really good.
And define the difference between a webinar and a workshop.
A workshop, you're doing the work. The participants are heads down. I have a timer going where we are working through the workbook that I give them, and they have something accomplished by the end. Where a webinar is more education, you're teaching them the thing and then walking away. But it's more of just like my talking head, maybe my slide deck, but it's not an interactive experience where they're completing a task by the end.
Okay. And so, as far as the webinar goes, I assume those are what you use to attract new business?
Yes, those are used famously to attract new business. I do workshops where I'll take my participants through one piece of my framework, and then they would need me to get through the rest of it. So I use workshops in that way, but webinars work really well for selling.
You start a meetup, or do you join a meetup to talk about that you're going to do this webinar or workshop? You start your own one. And there's enough people on there that want to meet up that somehow they get notified that here's this new meetup.
It's a community platform, and Meetup notifies people that they feel are a good fit for your group. So it's promoted by them. And I haven't done anything to promote my group, and there's over 100 people in it. And I'm only targeting local right now, just people that are nearby my house. So it works really well.
And then out of those, let's say 100, how many do you usually get on one of your workshops or webinars?
My most recent one, I got 80.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I wasn't mad at it. Those are pretty good numbers.
Well, it's pretty targeted then. I would say Meetup's doing a good job then. And is this something that you have to pay for to be part of Meetup?
No, you don't have to pay for it.
How do they make money?
Actually, yeah, I was on someone else's podcast when, like, after we hit record off, he was just telling me about his strategies on how he gets new clients. And he was talking about that. I'm like, I didn't know that Meetup was still popular because I used to use Meetup all the time. He's like, oh my gosh, it's transformative. And then I tried his tactic. I'm like, oh, that is transformative.
That's really cool. I've literally never heard of it. And I'm so glad that you're telling me about it and telling this audience about it, because I think anyone that's an entrepreneur would benefit from it. So you do webinars, you do workshops, you have a podcast, top 10% podcast. Do you have a newsletter as well?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you went to my website, it's right up at the top of the banner. Or if you go to my podcast, it's always in the show notes, but it comes out every Tuesday.
All right. So out of all of these different ways to promote tiny marketing and promote yourself as a marketing consultant, which one brings in the most leads?
You know what? Funny enough, this weekend, I was like, I'm going to build a dashboard. So I built an Airtable dashboard to figure out where most of my clients are coming in. And 41.6% came from LinkedIn, people who found me there, which no surprise, because that's where I was getting my clients before I was doing anything. And then communities were next. So Meetup, and then any other like Slack communities I'm in, just where I'm meeting people, all of those little online watering holes. And then third was podcasting. If we're going with the top three. And those were like people who became like got on fit calls. So they were ready to buy.
So explain, I've heard of discovery calls, but explain what a fit call is.
It's honestly the same thing, just another name for it. So like I stopped using the word discovery call because it has two definitions. And so it was kind of confusing for people because a discovery call could be it's a discovery of like what they need. You're gathering information, you're doing research for them. And it's like the kickoff to a project, but it could also be discovering if we want to work together. So there's two different ways people use discovery calls. So I stopped using it altogether and started using fit calls because we're trying to figure out if we're a good fit for each other. So it's a lot simpler. There's no questioning what's happening.
So that's the exact meaning of it, whether we're a good fit, whether we're going to continue the relationship.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So what is your number one recommendation to an entrepreneur who wants to attract customers? What's the first thing they should do? You've talked about all kinds of things. What would your number one recommendation be?
If they want to attract new customers, I would say pick one thing to be the expert at and talk about that. Focus in on that thing that you can solve, that problem you can solve, and people will start finding you. Because when you're talking about too many different things, you're all over the map. No one knows what they should hire you for.
And then they would do that through maybe a newsletter, maybe a blog, maybe a podcast, maybe webinars.
Yeah, pick your thing. I have my one rule where just choose one channel to focus on and be present on. Mine's at LinkedIn. One core content that you're willing to do on a regular basis, and you don't have to do anything else. Just do those things.
All right. And what kind of software or tools do you use to basically run your business?
Well, teamwork, I guess, would be the home base because that is where all my project management is. And I could not live without Zapier because I want all of my things to be connected. If there's something manual that I have to do, I'm annoyed instantly. So we'll walk through the process. When a lead comes in, they'll go straight to Dipsado, where all of their information is stored, and that's where proposals, contracts, invoices are all done. And then I have a Zap that connects them to Teamwork that'll create a project for them when they sign the contract. So boop, boop. Now, when I want to get people in the door, all of those pieces, I use Flowdesk for email marketing. I use Squarespace for my website. And I use Buzzsprout for my podcast. And my podcast is my core. So that's the thing I focus on. And I just, like, the RSS feed is connected to YouTube, so it just automatically goes to it. I'll use Opus to cut shorts to put on YouTube to connect to that podcast. And I use Descript to edit. And those are my go-tos.
Do you use Descript to edit the audio and videos, or you're just using Opus to create your content clips?
I use Descript to do all of the editing, and I use Opus to cut the shorts because it's just so fast. I don't have to, you know me, streamlined as possible. If there's something that could be streamlined, I'm going to do it. So I just drop the whole file in, and Opus finds all the hooks and cuts it for me.
Nice. Yeah, I'm familiar with Opus. So are there any other AI tools that you're using day to day?
Well, I upgraded to Buzzsprout's AI. So they will do my descriptions, my transcripts, chapters, all of that for me. So that's one of them. Opus for the clips. And then I use Content at Scale for long form content. And like my LinkedIn newsletter, I'll create a first draft using my podcast and putting it into Content at Scale. And that'll give me a pretty good first draft for a LinkedIn newsletter that I just have to tweak a little bit because I trained it to sound like me.
That's really cool. So how do you feel coming from public communications and a writing minor? How do you feel about generative AI and your place as a writer utilizing these tools, even Grammarly or ChatGPT or whatever, to write content? What are your thoughts and feelings about being a writer in the day of generative AI?
I'm fine with it. It helps me work better and faster. It'll help me come up with ideas. And if I don't have time to do a first draft, it'll do the first draft for me. And if I'm doing the first draft, it'll make it better. Like if I'm doing website copy, for example, I'll throw in all of the headlines that I've workshopped into ChatGPT and see what it comes up with, if it has any better ideas or things I can work off of and jump from. So I integrate AI into all of my little processes. If it can make me work faster and better, I'll take it.
That's great. And what do you say to people who are afraid of jumping into the AI waters?
You're going to be left behind. That's the world we live in. And whether you like AI or not, it's here. So I just say, okay, and get in because you're going to have to learn that skill.
Yeah, I've heard it said that it's not going to get uninvented.
Yeah, exactly. Like I understand the fear that people have with AI, certainly. I love a dystopian. But it's not going away, so adapt.
Right. So is there anything recently that you changed your mind about?
I guess AI would be the thing that I changed my mind about, but that's because it's gotten better. So if you listen to podcast episodes I was on a couple of years ago, people ask me about AI all the time when it was like before ChatGPT was invented and it was really new. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish it was good, but it sucks. I have yet to find one that works. So I definitely changed my tune on that. It's much better now.
And do you use ChatGPT or Claude or?
I use all the things. I use ChatGPT for like quick brainstorming stuff. I use Bard to go through my transcripts and like I input my transcripts and then I ask a question so I can pull the information really quickly. And then all of the add-ons that I can, like Buzzsprouts add-on, have it. I've now started, because I'm trying to connect everything that I can, connecting my Descript straight to Buzzsprout, and now it inputs that transcript, which is very accurate. So now I do that instead.
So let's talk about your podcast, because this is no simple feat to be in the top 10%. First of all, you've been at it for 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's probably like 30 people who listened to me in the first year.
Well, what made you decide to do a podcast?
Well, it started off as a live stream show. So it was video based at first. And I just got irritated with it. Like, I didn't want to have to schedule, like, I didn't want to be available at the same time every day. My tech would get wonky sometimes where my audio was misaligned with my lips and it bugged me. So, but the live stream, I could not think of the word, the live stream was really successful. So I still wanted to have like the important elements of it. I still wanted to keep it interview based. And so I took my audio from my previous live streams and started the first year was that. I just used the live stream audio as the podcast. And that's how I decided to test the waters. It's like this content already exists. It wouldn't be expensive to just see how it works. And it just fit into my processes so much better and allowed me to build relationships with such amazing people through the interviews that I kept going with it. And then I was getting on multiple podcasts a week and talking about my show. So that got more and more listeners and that helped a ton.
Do you feel like you understand kind of the different areas of your audience and what percentages are, learning so that they can apply it to maybe their own little company, or learning to apply it to their bigger company, or actually interested in listening to you to see if they want to hire you?
I think a lot of them listen to the show because they want to apply what I'm teaching to their marketing department. A lot of them are internal. I would say probably half are internal marketers and half are solo entrepreneurs that want to figure out how to market themselves. And most of them want to just learn from me, not specifically hire me. Where the money's being made on that front is the authority I have from my podcast. So people who just discover that it exists I don't think they necessarily listen to it, but they mention it. And that builds a lot of authority with potential clients. The people I meet interviewing drives a lot of clients. I end up getting a lot of referral partners that way. And then being on other people's podcasts has made a big impact for my lead generation. The hosts that I'm with, they end up becoming lead referral partners and sending intros my way and mine their way. So all of the relationships that are built during the podcast process is the biggest part of the lead generation.
Understood. And I hope to be able to refer people your way as well.
Thank you.
People, I already have ideas of people who've been on my podcast that I'm like, I think I should introduce them to Sarah. So
that would be great.
Yeah. And so as a fellow podcaster, like, what is the biggest thing you've learned from podcasting?
Sorry, 1 second. I just had to check my time, make sure that we were on time because I had another one right after this. What was that question?
Yeah. So what is the key thing that you've learned from podcasting?
How to really listen is a huge thing. I say right after I said, can you repeat that question? Because I had to check the time. But really it is. Because when you're podcasting, you need to listen to what the person said, reiterate what they said, and ask thoughtful questions that follow. And that has also translated really deeply into what I do for clients, like the strategic spark that I mentioned earlier. It starts off with a 60-minute interview of their internal stakeholders. And that's exactly what I have to do. I have to ask questions. I have to listen. I have to find the strategies that are hidden in what they're saying. They don't realize that they're there, what's working, and then ask thoughtful questions to pull even more information out. So that's been extremely helpful.
I agree. And it's something that you hope to get better at doing over time. I know that I sure every time I get off a podcast, I'm like, I should have asked this. I didn't respond to this. That you're just kicking yourself. But I'm just hoping to get a little bit better with each podcast for sure.
You should listen to my really early episodes. I sucked. It'll make you feel so good.
Okay. Yeah. And it's, I want to make several memes of every time I say, that's awesome. That's really cool. Every time I go into a podcast, I'm like, I'm not going to say that's awesome this time. No. And then 3 minutes in, I'm like, that's awesome. Okay. I just have a few more questions and a lightning round of questions, but what's something that most people don't know about you, Sarah?
Most people think that I am younger than I am, and they're surprised that I have 2 boys in elementary school.
Okay. What's the book that you recommend the most to people?
It's the one I mentioned earlier, Story Brand from Donald Miller. It's especially for like small marketing departments and solo entrepreneurs, the people who are listening to my show. It's so easy to digest and understand, like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
I can't wait to check it out. And I will definitely put it on the recommended books list on the Make Your Manager Money podcast website. So here's the lightning round of questions. What's your favorite candy bar?
Anything with peanuts.
Would that be Snickers? Would that be just any of them?
Sure. Let's go with Snickers. I'm more of a peanut M&M girl.
Okay.
Does it have to be a candy bar?
That doesn't. You could say peanut M&Ms. Yeah.
Peanut M&Ms.
Okay. Favorite music artist?
Right now, it's Noah Khan. I am an absolute music junkie. Top 1% Spotify listener, they tell me every year.
That must be thousands of hours of
It's a
Spotify
lot.
music, yes. Favorite cereal?
Honey Nut Cheerios.
Mac or PC?
Mac.
Google or Microsoft?
Google.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs. I have 3 right here.
Phantom or Les Mis?
Phantom.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for taking time on our lunch hours, I guess, to share your entrepreneurial journey. I look forward to continuing to learn about marketing by listening to your Tiny Marketing podcast. And I wish you the best of luck and massive success in the years to come.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Sarah.